Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace, returning creator, who actually probably should have been on long before now, because it's been quite a few years. But that's totally on me. Many times, Ray Chou and I have talked about having him back on. Long-time listeners will remember Ray from back in the Skies of Fire days, which is an incredible kind of steampunk Zeppelin story, which I highly recommend. We'll touch on a little bit here. But Ray's joining me today to talk about the current campaign for Glow. Issue 7 is a new issue, but the campaign, you can get the previous 6 issues as well. It's a fantastic story with themes of fantasy and magic and family and responsibility and that sort of thing. So we're going to dive into it. Ray, it's great to finally have you back on, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. It has been years and years, but you're looking good, man. We survived COVID, and now we got to survive whatever comes next.
Yeah, 100%. And we're going to get into the kind of the community you've built with MythWorks as well. But let's start off by letting everybody know kind of your elevator pitch for what Glow is about, and if you want to touch specifically for Glow fans on what they can expect in issue 7.
Yeah, absolutely. So Glow, for those unfamiliar with Glow, Glow is a coming-of-age story set in the world that's very much inspired by works like Nausicaa, Disney's Atlantis, the Final Fantasy series, specifically Final Fantasy VII, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's about an ancient magical empire who once transformed the world into a paradise, but now that paradise has been lost. It follows two siblings about 200 years after that in this magical apocalypse world. Cassie is a huntress of the waste. She has a magical rifle that shoots like blue anima glow. That's what the series is named after. It's kind of like the magical energy that once powered these towers and now is like this kind of radioactive material. And Koken, the younger brother, can put together the old magical technology intuitively. He's a bit of a nerd. He's a linguist. He's studying the ancient Nymeran language and the runes. And the first book was all about him putting together what he thought would bring back the towers, but it ended up backfiring on him. But a witch witnesses that, and the witch has this kind of mysterious past that hasn't really been revealed in the series yet. But essentially, she definitely knows more about the reason why the towers fell and the current state of the world, and she sees this wondrous ability that Koken has, and tries to recruit him at first, but there's a big misunderstanding along the way, and that leads to her older sister kind of getting very protective, and this misunderstanding just keeps spiraling out of control. And in the beginning of the second book, we find them on the run in the wastes. Specifically, issue number 7 picks up after that. So they're approaching a new city called Arcadai, and Arcadai is a big power in the wastes. It has been continuously populated for 4,000 years. It sits on this river tributary, so it's kind of an interesting place culturally. They claim descendants from Nymeran, Nim, so they claim direct descendants, but that's not really the case. It just happens to be a place, even when it got nuked by magic, its location was so advantageous that people naturally were drawn back to it, and they were able to repopulate pretty quickly. So they have this like weird dichotomy where the people there say they're of the old magical empire and they're direct descendants, but they're really not. Myra is, and so there's like a difference there. But specifically, the kids are there to try and win over the hearts and minds of the populace. One of the characters, Anders, who's a bit of a thief, bit of a rogue, he decides that the best way for them to win over the people of Arcadai is to throw a puppet show. So it's a bit more of a lighthearted issue. It's a bit of brevity because Glow so far through the first 6 issues, the first 4 are kind of like the Fall of Shaddai. It's really heavy stuff, and going into the second book, we realized that like it was so heavy in the first book that we kind of had to deal with like the emotional weight of that in number 5 and 6. But now that like we kind of let the characters have a moment to talk about and process like the trauma that happened, now like we can kind of get back to them like being a little bit more goofy and like kind of like leaning into that sort of like kid story element of Glow. So it's about hearts and minds, issue number 7, and the B storyline. It follows the Stonehand. So there's a group of Stonehands that was introduced an issue or 2 ago, and they also are kind of like this like frat bro type of like cultists, right? Like they're raiders of the waste, and they recruit one of the Shadaians into their ranks, and it's about like their rituals, and they're very wholesome, but at the same time they're also like a cult. So it kind of covers on like it skirts the line between like that, oh, this is like your new family now, but also you have to do some things to prove your loyalty. So Hearts and Minds is kind of the title of issue number 7, and those are kind of the main storylines that we follow.
Yeah, interesting to hear you're going back to a little more of the lightheartedness because although it's been there's been serious topics from the start when you talk about prior to the fall of Shaddai there was some humor obviously brother sister there's banter back and forth and what have you but yeah I mean obviously they want to free their city from the Stonehands and any survivors because there have been a few, and anybody who's been reading will know what I'm talking about. So let me throw the graphic up here on the screen for everybody to see for issue number 7. Now, if you're listening to this, that means the campaign has gone live. We're recording it ahead of time, but it's going live on April 22nd, same day this episode drops. There's a link in the show notes. Everybody go and check it out. Just take a few minutes. I'm also going to put a link to the MythWorks website where you can go and you can buy individual issues there as well. There's a hardcover there also. And also the aforementioned Skies of Fire is available there to check out. So it's a really great community that Ray and the rest of the creators behind MythWorks have created. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But quickly before we do that, and before we touch on some of these characters, because it's been a long time since Rave's been on, and I've been a supporter of Glow, and I love the story, and I love these characters, and I've never had a chance to pick his brain about them. But quickly before I do that, I'm going to remind everybody, as I always do, that everything that Ray's saying, maybe hey, it's right up your alley. You love it. You love Final Fantasy VII. You love Avatar: The Last Airbender. This sounds great. The art looks wonderful, but times are tight right now, and you just can't swing it. Like we get it. We totally understand. The best way that you can help out Ray and the MythWorks team, other than supporting the campaign, because if you just can't make it work, we understand, is just share it on social media, right? Put it out there. Let your comic shops know. Let your friends that might be interested know. Your fellow comic book fans. So that way, everybody who wants to get a chance to jump on this campaign, because it's been a little bit since issue 6 came out. But everybody that wants to jump on this campaign gets a chance to see it and gets a chance to join the campaign. So. Ray, again, haven't had a chance to have you on to talk about these characters. I think I'm trying to remember. Maybe issue 1 we had you on, but I got it so long ago I can't recall. But what I do love is what I said before about the brother sister dynamic, the banter back and forth, and what have you. Anders is a great character as well. As you've been developing this with Vince Ferraro, your creative partner. Talk a little bit about the process, how you guys break the story, scripting, that sort of thing. And are there parts of the story that are easier for you or easier for Vince? Certain characters whose voices you find easier. I'm curious, kind of give us some behind the scenes.
Yeah. So Glow, the first of all, me and Vince as creative partners, we've been working together this is our 11th year, publicly like releasing work together. And so it's been over a decade, and it's been kind of crazy. Me and him, we've collaborated in every permutation possible. So we have written, actually today, we were just working on the same document. Like we were just talking, and like he read the latest draft of Glow number 9 that I sent him. I got his feedback, and specifically there was a huge chunk of it that I've been working on it for the past like 3 months. Basically, it was like my first quarter goal was like, okay, I gotta get like the first draft of issue number 9 done. And I managed to do that, and he was reading over it, and I left the last kind of huge sequence a little bit more blank intentionally, and it's a lot of physical movement. There's a lot of blocking that needs to happen. There's a lot of silence and like kind of this whole survival sequence. And I left it intentionally blank because I knew that that's what Vince would resonate with, and he would be able to have like really really great ideas to bring that part to life. And sure enough, I didn't even say anything. I let him read it kind of blind, and once he was done, he was going over his initial thoughts, and he was like, "Yeah, and once we get to this Kelborn sequence at the end, like I can, there's so much room you could go with it. Like there's so many different directions, and have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?" And I was like, kind of just smiling because I was like, perfectly as intended, as planned. Like I was like, okay, this part, like I would love for you, Vince, to take a crack at it and to basically take a couple revisions and just add your spin to this sequence specifically. So that's kind of how we're currently working. But this is almost like a full circle. Like this is how we started working back in I think 2012, 2013 when we were doing the initial drafts of Skies of Fire. Back then when we were writing screenplays, like he would write a draft and then I would write over that draft and then back and forth and we passed the baton like that. That eventually evolved into us like having these marathon Skype sessions. Zoom wasn't even around back then. Skype sessions where we would be on a call for 8, 9, 10 hours straight and like writing together on the same page because at the time, this is going to age me a little bit, but if listeners can remember back to a time when Google Docs was a new thing and being on the same document was a new thing, right?
Yeah.
This was right around 2012, 2013, 2014. So that was like a game changer to be able to like read the same document and to write on the same document at the same time. That allowed for us to like really collaborate virtually. It's kind of interesting looking back now. We were like really first adapters when it came to like that kind of virtual office space thing that, you know, that like has kind of come and went and now is like just part of our everyday lives, right? So we were working like that for a little bit. And then we've just, you know, we've gradually kind of like wax and waned on our dynamic as we've gone, but also like it's a growing thing because you know we've essentially been creative and business partners for 11 years now, and that's like a really serious relationship, right? And like any relationship, it's a great relationship. I love Vince to death, and like I can't imagine doing this with anybody else. But you know, we've gotten to know each other a lot more, and we've definitely pushed each other's buttons over the years, and like we've had our blow ups, our makeups, and whatnot. I can say confidently in 2025, our relationship is like better than ever. But sometimes in between, especially when there's creative differences, then it's like, okay, well, let me go work on my version, and you work on your version, and like everything in between, right? But I guess like one of the big lessons for me the past couple of years and everything I've done is just like how important it is to collaborate with people and to make sure that everyone is heard, right, and seen. And because I think like creatively, we all want to make the best work we possibly can. But as people, that's what we need is like we need to be like seen and heard and you know like recognized and that's really really important. So I'm not sure if like that answered the question or not, but like it's everything in between. With Glow specifically, the parts that I am attracted to most, I look at it as like I kind of hyper focus or I go into like these kind of key events and I look at it from like a mythological kind of point of view of like, okay, like where are the characters at emotionally, but also like what are the creation myths of this world that we can kind of like reference and echo back. And Vince is really kind of more like, okay, what are the constraints of the scene right now, but also like what are the hard like nuts and bolts? Like today he asked me like, well, okay, like we're talking about Myra's mask and how to incorporate that a little bit more. And we're like, okay, well, like let's hone in on what these masks are. Like these were from people of Nymeria. Okay, so like the elites. So how big was Nymeria? Was it like how big was the Roman Empire? How big was the Han Dynasty? Like 50 million about. It turns out both were about 50 million, which is like very surprising. So we're like, okay, cool. So what if there were 8,000? What is that? That's like the 1% of 1%, right? Okay, like what about like 80,000, right? And like what does that mean for what the masks are, but also like what the culture of this place is. And that's a lot of the stuff that like the questions that Vince asked, this real like grounded historical world building kind of like hard. I do a lot of the soft world building stuff and kind of like here's the origin story, here's the high concept, here are like here are the people and shakers that have done things that have shaken up this world. And he does a lot of like the hard world building where it's like, here's like the numbers, here's like what things look like, and here's how things are organized in this world, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, which is great, right? Because when we talk about world building, everybody, obviously it's very important to story, but you also have to have characters that you care about, which you guys have done a fantastic job on both fronts, which is why MythWorks is so great, and it's why this material is so great, everybody, because you're going to get things like maps, you're going to get back matter with numbers and things that kind of enrich and give context to the story, but again. These are good stories with characters that you care about, that you become emotionally invested in. So it's such a great balance, and always has been, with the work that you guys have done. Do you want to talk a little bit about the art team and the look of the world for Glow? Because it does have a very unique look. I don't think this book looks like anything else out there. You can see some manga influences. We're talking about things like Avatar: The Last Airbender, what have you. But the fantasy elements are huge as well. When we see things like giant snake monsters or giant like rock golems and that sort of thing. It's such an interesting look. And also you guys are always very cognizant of production values. Like you get a really nice product with, good paper, and you really showcase the art in the best way. So it really is just a great, product. You're getting a good value for your Kickstarter dollar.
Yeah, thanks, Jace. So we did want like I guess like a very specific look to Glow when we were first starting out. And back in the day, we were trying to nail the concept, the look and feel of this world like so hard. Like I had it in my head, and I had like all these like mood boards and references, but the artists that we were talking to and getting like sample commissions from, like it was a little bit too much this, a little bit too much that. Until we found a young artist named Dia Jha from Art Center, and she's it's funny, she's not a young artist anymore. She's like 26 now, but like when I met her, she was like 19, I think, at the time. But she kind of like, she had some like really raw sketches, and she didn't have much in her portfolio at the time. But I could feel that she had like a take on this world, I guess. So gave her the material, and she kind of cranked out the original designs, and we were like, yeah, that's it. That's sort of the vibe. So we spent like the next year or so working with her to develop the world of the Glow, but also because she was like a young artist, kind of like developing her kind of like skills or her techniques, for lack of a better word, and just trying to like give her as much feedback as possible, and guide the art in a direction that we thought was like positive. Our influences, so I talked a little bit, like Miyazaki is always a big one. You can kind of find him throughout like Skies of Fire and Glow, and all of our work really. Specifically Nausicaa. What's funny is like that's one of the things where like, obviously Miyazaki is a big general influence overall, but Nausicaa I wasn't like really familiar with until after I began Glow. So it's like that kind of parallel thinking, but now that it's there, it's like, oh wow, like so much of it echoes that, right? Like the main character in Nausicaa is a girl with a long rifle in this world that's been kind of like destroyed, and like so now looking at it, it's like it seems very obvious, but that's certainly like a big cornerstone or touchstone, even if it wasn't like intentional. Same thing with like Final Fantasy 7. I say that, but like I personally never got into that series, but like looking back, I certainly was aware of it, and the idea of like Mako, right? Like, which is their version of anima, and like this industrial like power plant from the world's core and is destabilizing the world itself. That's like a very, very much like an alternate version of Glow, right? So that certainly was an influence. Like I grew up reading manga, like mostly the popular shonens like Naruto and Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. I wasn't like super, super deep into it, but certainly like I had that kind of cultural osmosis. I was really, really into Avatar, and that was very much intentional, right? Like I think in my mind, even if I said like I don't want it to look like Avatar, or like let's not try it, like I kind of was, it had definitely leaned in that direction, right? In terms of like what I was attracted to. The idea of this like Odyssey journey too. that was a kind of big influence of like, yeah, like these people who are on the run and being chased, these kids, right? And like learning about the world and whatnot. So it has like themes from that. And I think like you mentioned earlier how like we're getting back a little bit to like the brevity, and there's like some real serious stuff, right? Like, to be honest, I think that might have been like the specter of like A Song of Ice and Fire, right? Like the
Right.
whole
Yeah.
witch thing, and like that, you know, this kind of like post fantasy where it's like, oh wow, like, you know, it can be like real serious, and like things can like, you know, it can be like real heavy, right? Or like these big beats, which we've had in a lot of our stories. And I guess like one thing that I'm trying to be more cognizant of as a writer and creator going forward is that, like, you know, I like to take these big swings, but sometimes it's like it's good to like let things simmer a little bit more, right? And like to like not go so high or so low. So almost like in a way like deprogramming from that stuff, right? Like the George R. R. Martin, Game of Thrones, or even like J.J. Abrams. Like I, you know, we like I'm 36, so like we graduated, me and Vince graduated from film school in 2010, right? So Star Trek, the reboot came out in our junior year, so it was like, you know, it was huge, even if we were like the snobby like film student nerds who were like, oh, J.J. Abrams, like it was still just a huge like presence, right? Like that's what pop culture was, like is or was at the time. So like I feel like these days there's a lot of momentum in kind of the opposite direction of like I would characterize that kind of era as like this like almost shock value, right? Like the Game of Thrones is like, oh, like the Red Wedding, it's so shocking, like you could have never seen that coming. And in a way that's similar to like J.J. Abrams' whole like mystery box, right? Like, oh, and then this happens, and then this happens, and like maybe it's stuff that like, you know, like led to some tendencies in our own creation, right? Because that's like what we grew up with. And like now I find myself as a creator intentionally pulling away from that a little bit and just like wanting to follow the thread a little bit more and just like let's just kind of build it up and like kind of like simmer as opposed to like just go into like a fry with everything, right?
Yeah, and it makes for a fantastic story again because the world building is so good, and then you're inhabiting it with compelling characters that we're invested in. Um, and you know, we talk about that, and you know, longtime listeners to the podcast will know like some of my favorite genres are when we're really mixing up things, right? Like you know the old west stuff, but it's got like mystical magic or you know
Yeah.
steampunk technology or what have you, and that's sort of what we have here. I mentioned it at the beginning how you know you've got that fantasy element, but then you have you know another you know part of it that you know post-apocalyptic and what and even Koken himself when Myra you know she mentions magic and he's like, oh well, you know, magic is just a word for when people don't understand a technology, right? And I love that because it's you know it's not the you know the first time we've ever been introduced to that concept, but you know there could be some truth to that, and looking at it from a different angle, seeing it as technology, you know, the leftover runes and kind of energy that's now, as you said, kind of become radioactive. So it's just such a great world to live in and discover. Everybody, if you haven't checked out any of the Glow issues or any of the Glow story before. Can you talk a little bit about that, Ray? Like, what's going to be available for people that haven't, you know, that maybe are hearing about this for the first time, in terms of like tiers, like how can they get previous stuff and what have you?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a couple of tiers designed specifically for new readers. So for I think especially the first 3 days for like $49, you can get like a physical copy of like everything that we have, like the hardcover plus like the actual comics themselves. And then for $30, you can get the digital collection, right? Like the story up till now and everything in between too. There's of course like a bunch of different merch options you can get. Like we have postcards, we have badges, we have all sorts of cool stuff. We're doing like a collector's box this time around, so people who have been collecting the floppies can kind of put their stuff and their other merch in like one neat place with a nice spine on their bookshelf, or just like to store it somewhere with a cool cover. We have a couple of really cool variant covers. Dia Jha, the original artist, is coming back to do one of the variant covers, which I'm really excited about. She's doing a sort of like psychedelic take on Arcadi, the city that we're in, influenced by like Yeah, like 70s psychedelic rock, like album covers. Album covers are a big thing for the variant covers in Glow. That's like kind of our go-to reference point. We also have like a boy's life camping variant cover that Vince, the series artist, is doing. So yeah, just like a lot of really, really cool stuff. And like what we're trying to do, like obviously we're just trying to continue the series, like finish the second book. So this is the third of the four issues that go into it. So once we finish issue number 8, which we're hoping to release this year too, we'll see. Hopefully we can do that, and that'll be like the second book. And so now's a great time to hop on for Glow. Like we're really, really excited for the direction of the series. I spent all day today working on the Kickstarter page and making sure it's like as clean and awesome and appealing, especially to new fans, as possible. So if you're new to Glow, if you haven't heard of it, or if you've maybe heard of it but haven't like really checked it out, like please give it a shot, especially like in 2025. Like support, indie comics, support original work, right? Like that. I think it's so important, especially like with everything that's going on. I just like I just am so I feel so grateful and so blessed to have had the career that I've had, being able to like create these stories. And I'm not like I'm aware that it's becoming more and more challenging, as time goes on. It seems like there was a certain point where I started in like 2013, where like crowdfunding and Kickstarter allowed for so many creators to like kind of get their start. And like, unfortunately, in 2025, I don't think it's as fruitful of an environment for a number of factors. So, I'm grateful that we just are able to continue this series, and that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to keep making more comics.
Yeah, fair enough. And I want to talk a little bit about the community you've created in just a second. But one other thing I want to mention, you said being able to get everything for $49 at least, for the early bird for the first few days. I gotta call that out, everybody. Like that is such a fantastic value. I mean, that's basically what a regular comic is going to cost you now. To get 6 issues or what have you. That's about what it's going to cost you if you go down to your local comic book shop. But here's the other thing: these aren't the size of a regular book. They're bigger. They're larger than that. All the Mythworks stuff is a larger size, which is fantastic because again, it leans into that production value that I was talking about, and being able to see the art kind of blown up is really fantastic. So I want to make sure to point that out. It is a larger size, everybody. Great. Like I love my Skies of Fire hardcover. I love my individual issues because everything is just top notch. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about a community. You have people that come back, for campaign after campaign, and that's a testament to what you and the rest of the MythWorks team have done over time. So, like, what does that mean to you're going to launch, as we said, April 22nd. That first day, you're going to have a bunch of return, members of the community come back and, and pledge and want to get the next chapter. That's got to be gratifying.
Yeah, I mean it's everything, to be honest. We're so grateful that we have fans that are able to, that are there for us day one every time we launch a new project. Like community is so like important. I actually think that like we're like as creators, we're kind of getting back to that. So like for Jace, I don't know, I talked a little bit about it, but like we kind of made a big detour into tabletop games over the past couple of years, which is why we haven't been like as prolific with the comic stuff. Is just like I was publishing and designing tabletop games, and like learning about that scene in that industry, and was had a couple of like big hits there and awards, and it's been really, really gratifying. But like I really kind of learned like what my upper limits are, I guess, in terms of like bandwidth of doing stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like always like, oh, like I want to do more. I want to do this. I want to do that. But like when that happens, like what has become really clear to me is that the important thing is the community stuff, right? Like you have to make sure to take care of your community. You have to make sure to communicate, to be there for your fans, to be transparent, and to just like keep going, right? And like I think that one of the things that like I want to do better going forward is that, and communicating with like the fans, and just being like really honest with everybody, like, and to, for lack of a better term, put like a face on for our comics and our creative work, because I think that's something we did really, really well. When we were getting started with Skies and Fire and Glow, but as we've gotten into tabletop, like it feels more like MythWorks is this like thing now, right? Like it's this like geek brand or whatnot that people know of. But at the end of the day, it's really just still me and Vince, right? And it's
Right.
like we want to like make sure that we're still talking to people, and like, I'm still like giving people insights as to like my creative process and stuff like that. So actually, like this year, I started a MythWorks comic Substack. I'll send you the link. I don't know if you've checked it out, but like basically, it's just like more of the old school content that I used to blog about, being like, okay, like I got writer's block, and this is what I do to deal with writer's block. Here's what I worked on today. Here's what I'm thinking about, and like this is what I'm reading, and stuff like that. So just like communicating with people, I think it's really important. I just told Vince today that I think no matter what, like when we first started, our most hardcore fans were people who wanted to be creators themselves, or were so invested that they love learning about the how the sausage is made, for
Right.
lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So like getting back to doing that stuff and being like, okay, like let's just talk more about like how we're creative and like what we're thinking about when we're making it, and like, just sharing more of that process, I think is one of our big goals for this year.
Yeah, well, it's all about connection, right? And again, not to sound like a broken record here, but when we talk about the richness of the worlds that you guys create, inhabiting with these, compelling characters that are relatable, um, and yeah, you guys are a small company putting out these books, so we get two a year. That's great, but as fans of these properties, if we can't get more, which we understand, because it does take time, and again, you guys don't take any shortcuts when it comes to production value and stories. The other way we can still get our MythWorks fix is through that community connection, right?
Hmm.
Hearing what you guys are up to, hearing what other members of the community are up to, seeing you at shows and that sort of thing. But I completely understand when you talk about bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, I think back to when I first started the podcast and I had to hustle to get people to come on, and now I can't say yes to everybody that wants to come on because I just I got to still work the day job and
Yeah.
travel and all that stuff. So I totally get it. So it's all about balance. But yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of yours. I'm a fan of what you guys have built. So really fantastic. So reminder, everybody, link in the show notes to go and check it out. Also a link to the MythWorks website, and I'll put a link to the newsletter as well. So if you want to sign up there and feel that connection with the MythWorks team, you can. Remind everybody, as far as social media, Ray, where the best place to follow MythWorks and yourself would be online.
Yeah, so MythWorks is everywhere at MythWorks HQ, all one word, lowercase. So TikTok, Blue Sky, X a little bit, Instagram. Those are our main platforms. And the best place if you want to follow like sort of what I've been up to personally, like I kind of like use the TikTok as like the personal kind of like social media for myself, and the Substack for the MythWorks comics. That's where I'm blogging these days.
Fantastic. Well, last question as we're winding down here. You mentioned hoping to get issue 8 out and complete the second volume of Glow this year. Like, assuming everything goes well and people keep showing up, how long do you guys plan on going? Is there an end game for
Yeah.
Glow?
Yeah, at least 16. At least 16, and then I'm gonna reevaluate like after 16, but like let me get to the end of 16 first. Like I think that's where all the current pieces are. Like that's the room that I need to get to like a really satisfying ending. Um, Here's a tip for new comic creators out there. Like if you're a comic creator, like don't make your first series some like epic open-ended like 40 issue whatever. Like
Right.
just don't. Just don't. Like I really wish I could like go back in time and like kick my younger self and be like, do 8, bro, or do 10.
Yeah.
Do 10, and
Yeah.
and then, like just scope it at 10. Like trust me, it's gonna be so good. But in any case, like for what I bit off, 16 I think is the magic number right now.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to get my hands on issue 7 and check it out, and I look forward to more to come as well. So, hey, man, great to see you. Great to catch up.
Likewise, thanks so much, Jace.
And again, reminder everybody, links in the show notes to go check out the campaign, as well as MythWorks social media and Ray's TikTok and all that. So on behalf of Ray and myself, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it, whether you're listening audio only or checking us out on YouTube. We appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you next time.